Guten Tag alle, Herr Wallis hier. Heute wollte ich ein bisschen über das Dativ sprechen und die Ausdrücke, die man im Dativ manchmal hört oder verwendet. So today we're going to talk about expressions using the dative in German. Let's make sure we understand before we get started what are the most common reasons why a noun is in the dative case. In German, a noun is in the dative case most commonly because it's the indirect object of a sentence. For example, ich habe meinem Freund den Ball gegeben. What you gave was the ball. To whom? To your friend. So, just like in English, the indirect object is what receives the action of the verb indirectly. In this sentence, the ball receives it directly, but it's given to the friend. You can also think of it as to whom or for whom something is done. Okay, so Freund here is our indirect object, and Ball here would be our direct object or accusative case. The second reason why a noun could be dative is because it follows a dative preposition. Here I'm using the dative preposition mit, which makes Freund the object of the dative preposition and therefore dative. Ich habe Tennis mit meinem Freund gespielt. Third reason why something could be dative in German may be because you're using a verb that is dative. In German they have certain category of verbs that always use the dative. These are called dative verbs, and helfen is one of those. So ich kann meinem Freund nicht helfen. Here Freund is dative because the verb is a dative verb. So these are the three main reasons that something is dative. Let's review how the personal pronouns change in the dative. They change based on whether or not they are subject pronouns, direct object pronouns, indirect object pronouns, or even reflexive pronouns. So we're just going to talk here about the indirect object pronouns or dative pronouns, to put another way. So you have mir for me, dir for the informal you, ihm for him, ihr for her. And when you're referring to it, if it's a neuter noun, you could use es, but if it's a masculine noun, like der Bleistift, you might use ihm to refer back to that. Or if it's a feminine noun, like die Kreide, you might refer back to that with ihr. Uns for us, euch for you all or y'all, ihnen for they, or them rather, and ihnen for the formal you. Okay, let's review again how the definite articles change, and we have this chart here to remind us. The nominative, der, die, and das, and die for plural. Accusative, the only ones that change are the masculines. They change from der to den, die and das stays the same. And when we get to the dative, remember that der and das are changing to dame with an M. Die feminine nouns will change to der, and the plural will go from die to den, and the noun that follows that will either end in, and you'll either add an N or an EN depending on whether or not it ends in an E already, in which case you just have to add an N. For the indefinite articles, again, for the nominative, der words and das words are ein, die words are eine. The only thing that's going to change from that in the accusative is what you would expect, the masculine nouns changing to einen, eine and ein staying the same. And in the dative, der and das changing to einem, and die words changing to einer. Okay. Now, we're going to look at how the dative case can be used when you're experiencing a sensation, meaning the item being perceived by the person expressed as a subject of the sentence and is therefore in the nominative case. And the verb conjugates to fit that nominative case, and the person who's experiencing the item takes the dative case. So let's look at some common expressions that use this sort of example. We'll start with the verb sein. So in German, you can say, if you want to say I'm cold, you say es ist mir kalt. You would not say ich bin kalt. If you were to say ich bin kalt, it would mean out of context if you had no other context around it. People would generally think that you're saying that you're cold emotionally, or that you're uncaring or indifferent. And the same expression, you want to be careful, and you don't want to say ich bin heiß in German. You want to say es ist mir heiß. If you say ich bin heiß, that leads you down another road. Das ist mir zu teuer. That is too expensive for me. It's another example where you might use sein. Or das war mir langweilig. That was boring for me. In English, we would use for me, but in German, you can do this using the indirect object pronoun mir. Das ist mir zu teuer, or das ist mir zu langweilig. Okay, you can also, gefallen is a dative verb in German, so you use this a lot and you hear it a lot in the dative. Das gefällt mir nicht. It means I don't like that. It's another way of saying that you like something. In German, if you want to say that you like something, you can say ich mag das, which is the modal verb, comes from the modal verb mögen. Or you can say, use the adverb gern, ich habe das gern. But you can also use this verb, gefallen, which means you like or take pleasure in. So, das gefällt mir nicht means I don't like that. Or, gefällt dir das Auto? Do you like that car? Or, der Film hat mir gar nicht gefallen. Okay, the film didn't make me happy. I didn't like it. Another expression that you hear using the dative a lot is schmecken. Schmecken is a dative verb, so you're going to see this a lot or hear it a lot, especially around the dinner table. Das schmeckt mir nicht gut. That doesn't taste good to me. Literally, that tastes me not good. That tastes not good to me. Das Essen hat mir geschmeckt. The food had tasted good. Another expression you'll hear the dative with is gehen. Normally, gehen means to go, but when used with the dative, it's used to express a person's state of being. And when it's used in this way, it's only used with subject pronoun es, and it conjugates to the third person singular. So you hear this most commonly when asking how you are. Wie geht es dir? Or wie geht es Ihnen if you wanted to be polite. How are you doing? Es geht mir gut. It's going good for me. Wie geht es deinem Freund? How is your friend doing? So normally gehen means to go, but you can also use it with the dative to express a state of being. Another verb you'll hear dative used a lot with is nutzen. Nutzen means to be of use. So for example, das nutzt mir nichts. That is no use to me. That is no use. Wie hat das mir genutzt? How has that helped me? Or how is that useful to me? Was nutzt dir das? How is that useful to you? You can also hear a lot of times the dative with gehören. Gehören is a verb that means to belong to. And to show possession in German, you can do it using the genitive or genitive case. You can use it. You can use the dative preposition von, or you can use the dative verb gehören, which means belongs to. You don't want to get this confused with the past participle of hören, which is gehört. So, for example, ich habe die Musik gehört. I have heard the music. But gehören by itself is also a verb that conjugates, but you most often hear its third person singular form, das gehört dir nicht. That doesn't belong to you. Or das Buch gehört dir nicht. Gehört dir das Auto? Does the car belong to you? Das Buch gehört meiner Schwester. So here I've turned die Schwester, which might normally be meine Schwester, into meiner to reflect that it's dative because of the dative verb gehören. Another verb you'll hear used with a dative, especially in situations where you are expressing clothing or talking about clothing fitting or not, is the verb passen. It's a dative verb and it means to fit. So das Hemd passt dir nicht means that shirt doesn't fit you. Or passen dir die Schuhe? Do the shoes fit you? Die Jeans passt ihr gut. The jeans fit or look good on her well. Fit her well, yeah. Okay, another verb that you hear with the dative is stehen. This is normally to express that you look good, that someone looks good with that. So it's used, when it's used like this, normally it means to stand, but when it's used like this to express that something looks good on someone, it uses the dative with the person being the dative. So you can say in German, die Farbe steht dir gut. The color looks good on you is what we'd say in English. Steht mir diese Bluse, does this blouse look good on me? Ihm steht das Hemd nicht. So the shirt doesn't look good on him. And notice here, if I start a sentence using the pronoun ihm, the next thing in my sentence is going to be the verb. And that's sort of a major rule of German word order, is that the verb is the second idea. So you can start with another part of the sentence, but when you do that, the next thing in your sentence has to be the verb. So whether you start with a time expression like morgen, the next thing has to be the verb. Okay, das war's. Vielen Dank für das Zuschauen. Auf Wiedersehen.